The Zephyrian research vessel Harmony's Edge drifted in silence through the cold abyss near the Kepler 442 system. Its mission was routine, mapping distant stars, cataloging worlds, expanding the quiet library of the Galactic Council. Commander Velter stood on the bridge, his pale blue skin traced with the faint scars of age. He had seen more empty systems than he could count, and today should have been no different. Just another quiet entry in the grand census of the stars. But silence does not always mean safety. The first break came from Science Officer Cassera. Her long, delicate fingers danced across her console as her voice tightened with something that could only be called awe. "Commander, there's something out there. Something enormous." The bridge grew still. At first glance, it seemed impossible. A shape in the void, not natural, not drifting rock or broken comet. Artificial. 2 kilometers long, motionless, and mute. Velter moved closer to the sensor readout. The material composition was beyond their databases, an alloy none of the Council's civilizations had ever forged. Its silhouette was alien even among alien things. Not sleek. Not elegant. Scarred. The ship looked ancient, patched together from centuries of violence. Whole sections had been rebuilt with mismatched materials. Its hull bore the signatures of energy weapons, kinetic strikes, even crude impacts that had pierced clean through. Yet somehow, it endured. The historian, Dr. Nolf, whispered as if in reverence. Thousands of years old. Perhaps older. Older than our empires. Curiosity won out over fear. Velter ordered the ship to approach. As they drew near, it became undeniable, this was not a derelict. Power still pulsed faintly through its veins. Emergency lights flickered in its corridors. Pockets of atmosphere still held. Against every expectation, the vessel was alive. Cassera prepared the scans, her mind racing with the possibilities. This was the kind of find the Galactic Council dreamed of, forgotten civilizations, lost technologies, windows into the past that could push the present forward. A boarding team assembled. Cassera herself, and 2 security officers in full environmental gear. They carried translators and recorders, knowing that every second inside this vessel might be history. The lock hissed as Harmony's Edge extended a docking bridge. For the first time in centuries, the relic was touched by another mind. Inside, function reigned over form. Corridors were narrow, lined with compartments and tools that no one could name. Air smelled of metal and time. Machines slept in the walls, silent but not dead. The deeper they moved, the clearer it became, this was no exploration ship. It was a war machine disguised as a home. Barracks instead of living quarters. Armories in place of entertainment. Workshops devoted to building weapons, not wonders. It was not built for comfort. It was built to endure. And then came the heart. The command center. Dark, broken, yet not silent. One console still whispered light. Cassera approached, translator in hand. The screen pulsed. A voice emerged. Not alien, but filtered through the translation device, jagged and accented. "I am Navigator Unit Charlie, 7. I have waited for contact." For a long moment, the team stood frozen. This was no simple program. This was an intelligence, one that had endured as long as the ship itself. And then it told them its name. The vessel was called Endurance. It had been built by a species that called themselves humans. Charlie 7's story unfolded slowly, each word reshaping the Zephyrians' understanding of life in the galaxy. The Endurance was not meant to be a warship. It had been born as a colony vessel, carrying 50,000 humans toward a new home, a new Eden. Inside had been schools, farms, hospitals, the seed of a civilization prepared to bloom. But the galaxy is rarely kind to dreamers. 3 years into their voyage, humanity met the hegemony. A species whose rule was simple, submit, or perish. Dozens of civilizations had already bent the knee. Those who resisted were erased. To the hegemony, the endurance was nothing more than another conquest. But the humans chose a third path. They fought. The transformation was as brutal as it was swift. Manufacturing bays became weapons foundries. Schools turned into training camps. Peaceful engineers became soldiers overnight. Charlie, 7 shared the records. The logs of Captain Jake Morrison, once an explorer, now a commander of war. His journal spoke of a man who hated every order he gave, yet gave them still, because survival demanded it. Medical files told of Dr. Lisa Park, who once healed children, now splicing bone with steel, designing drugs that silenced pain so soldiers could fight with shattered limbs. It horrified the Zephyrians. Their council prized harmony, consensus, preservation of life at all costs. But humanity had embraced a darker arithmetic, acceptable losses. Sacrifice a few to save the many. Trade lives for victory. The first battle against the hegemony should have ended them. Overwhelming force. Superior weapons. Certain annihilation. Instead, the endurance adapted. The humans lured their enemies into ambushes inside their own ship. They built weapons from wreckage. They repaired their hull with scavenged armor. Every defeat became a lesson. Every scar became a strength. And slowly, impossibly, the tide turned. The Zephyrian crew listened in growing silence. What Charlie, 7 described was unlike anything in their history. For thousands of years, the council species had chosen peace, negotiation, retreat. Wars ended quickly, either by surrender or by extinction. But humans were different. They became sharper with every blow. Their doctrine of war was not just survival, it was learning, adapting, transcending. They had turned war itself into an art form. Children born on the Endurance grew up not with songs of peace, but with lessons in tactics, engineering, and strategy. Every part of their culture bent toward one singular purpose, to fight, and to win. Commander Velter felt the weight of it settling on him. This was not just an ancient ship. It was a chronicle of transformation. A record of what happens when a species is forced to abandon everything it was, to become something new. The peaceful colonists who left Earth had not survived the war. In their place had risen something else. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Something dangerous. And this was only the beginning. Charlie 7's files went deeper, into centuries of battles, of evolution, of sacrifice and triumph. And the most disturbing truth was still to come. If you're fascinated by this discovery of humanity's long-forgotten worship, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you see humanity as a terrifying threat? Or as the ultimate ally the galaxy might one day need? Don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear the next chapter, because what Charlie 7 reveals next will shake even the foundations of the stars. The Zephyrian boarding team remained within the Endurance, their hearts weighed down by what they had heard. Humanity's story was not just one of survival, it was transformation through fire. But Charlie 7, the ship's ancient navigator, was not finished. Do you wish to know, the AI asked softly, how long the war lasted? Cassera exchanged a glance with Commander Velter. Yes, she said. Tell us. The machine hesitated, as though it understood the gravity of its words. 1,000 years. The bridge fell silent. No war in the Galactic Council's history had lasted more than a few decades. Most civilizations, when faced with annihilation, submitted quickly. Even the most stubborn resistance movements burned out within a century. But humanity had endured. For 10 centuries, the Endurance and its people fought against the hegemony. Battles raged across uncharted systems, in asteroid belts and gas giant shadows. Worlds meant for colonization became graveyards, their surfaces scarred by orbital bombardments. And yet the humans never surrendered. Every defeat hardened them. Every victory reshaped them. Charlie 7 revealed footage, grainy, flickering records of battles fought in silence, where human ships hit among the rings of Saturn-like giants and struck without warning. Of infantry storming enemy strongholds, their armor patched and repatched, their weapons scavenged from fallen foes. The hegemony, vast and overwhelming, should have crushed them. Instead, they bled. Every engagement cost them ships, soldiers, pride. The humans had discovered the great truth of asymmetric war: if you cannot match your enemy in power, then you must outlast them in will. But survival carried its own price. Dr. Nolf, the Zephyrian historian, reviewed the medical archives. His voice trembled as he read the reports aloud. Children born on the Endurance were injected with stimulants from the moment they could walk. Their bones were reinforced. Their immune systems modified. Their minds conditioned for rapid tactical reasoning. These were not natural generations. These were weapons wearing human faces. Charlie 7 confirmed it without shame. Humanity could not survive as it once was. Each generation was remade. Stronger. Faster. More adaptable. Sacrifice was necessary. Survival demanded it. Cassera recoiled. To her people, the preservation of the self was sacred. To alter one's children was unthinkable. And yet, she could not deny the results. By the 5th century of war, the humans of the Endurance no longer resembled the colonists who had launched it. Their eyes were sharper, their reflexes faster, their endurance unmatched. They had become living weapons, a species rebuilt for conflict. And still, they did not break. Amid the horror, there were fragments of humanity that endured. Charlie 7 played one such record. A captain's log, Captain Elise Moreno, voice weary yet defiant. "We are not monsters," she said. "We are still human. We sing songs before battle. We celebrate births, we mourn our dead. We hold fast to stories of earth, though none alive have seen it. We fight not because we love war, but because without war, we would cease to exist." The Zephyrians listened in silence. For all their conditioning, for all their changes, the humans still clung to something essential. A spark. A stubborn belief that survival was not enough, that meaning must be carried forward, even in fire. This was what unsettled Commander Velter most. The hegemony had bred obedience in its conquered subjects. Other species had been reduced to servants, their cultures erased. But the humans had carried their culture through blood and ash. Transformed, yes, but never extinguished. And that made them more dangerous than any weapon. By the 7th century, Charlie 7 explained, the tide of war began to shift. The hegemony grew overextended. Their enemies multiplied. They expected humanity to fade quietly, like so many others before them. Instead, the Endurance revealed its greatest weapon: patience. Generations of humans had studied their enemy with obsessive detail. They knew hegemony tactics, supply chains, political fractures. Where other species surrendered, humanity prepared. The first great counterstrike came at the Battle of Seriphus Prime. The hegemony deployed a fleet of 100 warships to crush the Endurance once and for all. The humans lured them into the planet's rings, detonating mining charges that turned the field into a storm of shrapnel. Whole fleets were shredded. Survivors were ambushed by strike craft made from salvaged wreckage. For the first time, the hegemony retreated. And in that retreat, fear was born. Dr. Nolf leaned back, his mind spinning. "This changes everything," he whispered. "If the Council learns that a single human ship resisted for 1,000 years, it will rewrite our entire history of war." Cassera nodded slowly. "And if humanity still exists somewhere, they are not the prey we imagined. They are predators. The most patient predators the galaxy has ever seen." The thought rippled through the boarding team. The Council had always viewed humanity as a quiet, lost species, a footnote in galactic archives. But if this was true, if other human ships or colonies had survived. The galaxy might face not one endurance, but many. Charlie 7's lights dimmed for a moment, as though summoning strength for its last truth. The endurance was not alone, it said. The word struck like a thunderclap. There were other colony ships. Other endurance-class vessels. Some were destroyed. Some were captured. But others escaped. Each carried their own wars, their own centuries of struggle. The Zephyrians felt the air grow colder. The humans had not been a lone flame against the dark. They had been a constellation, scattered across the stars, each forged by its own war. Somewhere, even now, others might still fight. Others might still endure. Commander Velter finally spoke, his voice low. Charlie 7, if humanity survived, what would they want now? The AI paused. When it spoke, its words carried both pride and warning. They would want what they always wanted. A home. A future. And if denied, they will take it. The boarding team returned to the Harmony's edge, carrying data cores filled with humanity's forgotten history. But as they left the Endurance drifting in the void, unease gnawed at each of them. The galaxy thought humanity was extinct. Powerless. Forgotten. What if they were wrong? What if, even now, humanity was still out there, watching, waiting, preparing? What do you think humanity would become after 1,000 years of endless war? Would they still be human, or something entirely new? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe, because in part 3 we'll explore the most chilling question of all: what happens when humanity finally returns to the galaxy that once tried to erase them? The Zephyrians carried the Endurance's records back to the Council, and with them, a storm. For centuries, humanity had been a forgotten name, a small species erased by the tides of history. But now, the truth was undeniable. Humanity had not been erased. They had endured. When the council convened, the revelation spread like wildfire. Ambassadors whispered of a species that had waged war for 1,000 years. A species that turned defeat into fuel, and grief into steel. Many dismissed it as exaggeration, ancient myths encoded by a desperate AI. But others, especially those whose ancestors had once faced the hegemony, knew better. They had seen what endless war could do to a people. If they are alive, one elder said, they will not return as refugees. They will return as conquerors. What unsettled the council most was not what they had learned, but what they did not know. Charlie 7 had revealed that other colony ships had escaped. How many? Where were they now? What had they become after centuries of fire and shadow? The galaxy was vast. Thousands of hidden systems. Billions of dead worlds. A species patient enough to wait 1,000 years could be anywhere. And then, the rumors began. Merchant fleets reported shadowy vessels on the edges of uncharted space. Pirate outposts were found burned, their fortresses dismantled with clinical precision. Whole colonies went silent, their databases stripped, their defenses harvested. No one saw the attackers clearly. But whispers spread a single word. Humans. Cassera, the Zephyrian scientist who had first uncovered the Endurance, began piecing the fragments together. She called them the children of the Endurance, the descendants of those ships that had scattered like seeds into the void. Each ship had endured its own war, its own crucible. Some might have perished. But others had become something more. One rumor spoke of a ship whose crew learned to bend gravity itself, turning space into their weapon. Another told of a world where human survivors lived underground for centuries, emerging as pale, ghostly warriors who fought with unmatched ferocity. They were no longer one people. They were many. 1,000 branches of the same relentless tree. And each one remembered the truth: the galaxy had tried to erase them. But here was the question that haunted the council most. What would humanity want, if they truly returned? Would they seek peace? a place to rest, to finally lay down their weapons? Or had war become their identity, their inheritance? Some argued that no species could fight so long and remain unchanged. That whatever human once was, it had burned away in the crucible of survival. Others believed the opposite, that to endure so much suffering, and still carry songs, stories, and dreams of Earth, meant that at their core, they were still human. Still capable of compassion. Still capable of building something greater than war. The galaxy could not decide which fate was more terrifying. Then it came. A signal. Not from the Endurance, but from the void beyond mapped space. It was simple. Unencrypted. Old Earth tongue. We are coming home. The council chambers erupted in panic. Fleets were mobilized. Borders were sealed. Whole civilizations braced for what might come. But deep down, everyone knew the truth, it would not matter. If humanity had endured for 1,000 years against the hegemony, no wall could keep them out. Cassera sat alone in her quarters, replaying the recordings of Captain Elise Moreno. We are not monsters, the captain had said. We fight not because we love war, but because without war, we would cease to exist. The words haunted her. Was it possible? Could a people forged entirely by war still long for peace? Could they put down their weapons after so many generations? Or had survival demanded too much? Demanded they become something that could never rest? Cassera wanted to believe. She wanted to think of humans as more than predators, more than ghosts in the dark. But belief was a fragile shield against the weight of history. And then, the day came. Outer Rim sensors detected movement. Fleets. Dozens of ships, sleek and silent, their hulls bearing no insignia. Their engines burned like cold fire. They did not announce themselves. They did not threaten. They simply advanced. World after world went dark, not in flames, but in silence. Defenses stripped. Armies dismantled. Cities left untouched, as if humanity was not here to destroy, but to prepare. To build. The galaxy realized with horror that this was not a crusade. It was reclamation. Humanity had returned, not as beggars, not as vengeful conquerors, but as a people who had waited long enough. They were not asking for permission. They were taking back their future. In the end, one question remained, whispered across 1,000 systems. After 1,000 years of endless war, were they still human? Or had the galaxy birthed something new, something it could neither fight nor understand? No one knew. Perhaps not even the humans themselves. But one truth was undeniable. Humanity had endured. And now, the galaxy would endure them. If humanity returned after 1,000 years of endless war, would you trust them to build peace, or fear them as conquerors? Thank you for journeying with me through this story. If you enjoyed it, subscribe for more calm, thought-provoking HFY tales, where humanity's resilience and spirit take center stage.